This is an ad. You're hearing this ad on Jake Landau's podcast. Would you like to put an ad in this place? Email ads@jakelandau.ca and talk about ad rates to put your words in my mouth. Thank you. It is Saturday, November 1st, and it's getting pretty late with Jake Landau. Now, folks, I will be quite honest with you. I did not think when I scheduled today's podcast on a Saturday rather than a Sunday, no less, that there would be the Jays in the World Series, much less that we're in Game 7 and it's win it all or feel very, very shitty until spring training in February. But nonetheless, we are here, and we'll talk a little bit about that with our guest before we go into the actual full podcast itself, if you're actually in the mood to listen to politics talk today. But our guest, her name is Nokha Dakroub. She is the host of the Radical Center podcast. She's the former school board trustee in the Peel District School Board, and it is a pleasure to have her back on the program. We've had her once before. So, Nokha, thank you for coming back on the show.
Thank you for having me, Jake. It's always a pleasure.
No, well, thank you. I mean, I was just on your program again recently, the Radical Center. So you're a bit more to the right of me, but not too far to the right. You know, it's that nice mushy middle.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to say that I am right in the center.
Fun. I'm too angry to be in the middle of anything. I pick sides too much. But I like the show. But there's recently been a format change, and I've been on the show previously a few times, and it would usually be a sort of panel hosted by you and your previous co-host. But how has the show changed up recently?
So it's been pretty good. Cody has decided to move on and do other things for now, and we wish him best of luck with that. But yeah, I tried to experiment with a couple of different formats, but I think, we're going to keep it to a conversation, but it's going to be less of a panel and more of a one-to-one for now. And then we'll go from there. And we're, sometimes we're diving into one topic more extensively, and sometimes we are, doing, a few topics based on what's going on that week. So we're kind of doing different things right now versus what we used to do in the past, which was very, very specific. Just talk about the few big stories of the week. We also used to try to cover a lot of topics in a short period of time. So it was quite lengthy. Actually, it always ended up being over 30 minutes. So I'm trying to cut that down because I find that people don't want to watch a podcast for 40 minutes.
And watch is the key word there. For folks of you listening at home who are like, 30 minutes seems short for a Jake Landau program. The Radical Center, the Radical Center has video. So like you can physically see everyone talking, and there is different time lengths that for essentially different audiences. Like if watching the people speak is integral to the program, then it'll trend to like a shorter length. But when it's an audio program like this one that you might be listening to in the background, especially, then you can get to like more of like an hour-ish length.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, but that's basically what I'm focused on right now. I'm just trying to figure out what's going to work in a different format, and we'll see where things go from here.
Well, that's good. I know I was on recently we were talking about Doug Ford and the getting rid of the speed cameras, which isn't one of our three topics today, but I was wondering, how well did my appearance do? How are the ratings? Did I
pretty good. I mean, it's hard to.
It's pretty good, like ahead of the curve or behind the curve. Am I better than your other guests?
I would say it's pretty average.
Okay, I can deal with average. I've been average most of my life.
Yeah. No, I think it's interesting. Like what I've really noticed is that when we do an episode that really hits a topic that is right now happening, it's when it's very timely, and especially when it has anything to do with federal politics, that's when we get a lot of attention. You know what
Yeah,
I
yeah, I get what you mean as well. It's like some of my highest performing pieces, outside of one statistical outlier about a train ride to New York, are mostly about federal politics in Canada,
Yeah,
just because
yeah,
it's a wider audience. I mean, sure, there are a lot of people outside Ontario who will read about Doug Ford, or a lot of
yeah,
people outside Alberta who will read about Danielle Smith. You get the idea. Like,
yeah,
the more people it applies to. And I think that's part of why so many people read about American news outside of America, just
yeah.
because it's like the elder Trudeau said, they're the elephant next door, and you really can't ignore them even if you wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I've noticed that like anytime we talk about anything that has to do with Carney or anything that has to do with Polyev, um, we get a much larger audience. So, you kind of learn, but also sometimes I just want to talk about municipal stuff, even if 20 people watch it. So
I get
I
it.
don't.
Yeah. As part of why, like, I always like in the back half, for my third and final headline topic, I always try and pick like a municipal level story.
Yeah.
Like, and I try to spread it out around the country because obviously one weekly show doing one topic a week can't cover everything. But like
Yeah.
which is why for you I picked the Mississauga one.
Oh, good.
Oh, yeah.
Good. I'm
But
looking forward to that one.
oh
That's for
yeah,
sure.
but you get the idea. It's like so much of local news gets missed because, of course, yeah, the market for it is smaller, but it's also really important to the people that live there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
No, so I appreciate that your program does try to like does want to talk about it, but I also appreciate that like you are pushed by like the numbers you get on what people want you to cover, but also what's news is news, and you shouldn't limit coverage of news based on how people feel about it.
Yeah, I agree. And my biggest I guess priority is authenticity because that's what this medium is about. So for me, that's the most important part. And some episodes are going to do really well, and some episodes are not. And
Yeah, it's and I try not to like judge whether or not to bring an individual guest back based on how that individual week does,
oh
especially
yeah,
because like sometimes they're like for example, we have the World Series today. Like there are
yeah,
some people who might just not listen today and it's not your or my fault. Like
mhm.
but we're talking and we're also mentioning it, but like depending on whether we win or lose, this might be more fun or less fun to listen to tomorrow morning.
No, I know, and I also think you know it always has more to do with the topic than the actual guest because we've had
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
like we I don't think it has much to do with the actual guest unless you have
Well,
somebody who
I
is
see that in my writing actually, because
yeah,
whenever I listen, I'm never gonna stop writing about what's happening in Palestine and Lebanon
yeah,
and such because it's really fucking important. But like
yeah,
it does do worse a lot of the time in the numbers for me, and I don't
okay,
think there's anything malicious about that. I mean, maybe there's an algorithmic thing suppressing it but also I do appreciate that some people just they don't have the emotional energy to read
yeah,
about human
hard.
suffering of that degree on a regular basis. It's hard for me to write about. It's hard for the people on the ground actually taking this evidence so that I have something I can write about, but
Yeah,
it's still important to write about.
absolutely. I agree with you
Yeah.
100%.
And I get so you're Lebanese Canadian, and
I
I
am.
was wondering like there was a recent story a couple days ago where the Israeli military they launched an attack apparently on the United Nations peacekeeper positions on South Lebanon.
Yeah,
It's fucking frustrating, isn't it?
it is, especially when there's supposed to be a ceasefire and they're working towards ending the war in the region, and there's supposed to be a peace fire in Gaza, and there's supposed
Yeah,
to be a
if
peace plan. So it's extremely frustrating that
It
this
feel
keeps.
does it feel like when things cool down with one regional area they're trying to suppress that they then escalate things in a different one? Things cool down in Gaza, so they try to escalate in Lebanon. Things cool down in Lebanon, they escalate in Syria and Yemen. You get what I mean?
I think there's an element of that, but I also think there is a reality that the current administration in Israel does not wish to see this war ending.
Right.
And
Uh,
it's for
yeah.
many different reasons, including domestic issues, and personal issues, as I understand. So, um, yeah, I think the only way this war is really going to end is if the United States decides to actually put a real stop to it.
But Donald Trump has already put up his mission accomplished banner on the Navy ship, like George W. Bush. What more did you want him to do? Like,
No, I think he has a lot more buttons to push in terms of pressure, but I
yeah.
think he's backing down. But I have to give him credit. You got to give him
Oh
credit where
yeah,
credit.
I was going to actually just follow up that we're on the same wavelength there because we do kind of have to give him credit as much as it pains me. He
Yeah,
seems to have pushed more than Biden was ever willing to.
yeah, absolutely. He's
Yeah.
been the one good thing about Donald Trump is that he, like him or dislike him, and I'm not a fan, but he has this style and attitude where he's actually like not really afraid of anyone. And I think, as a result of that, he's been able to push back a lot more than the Biden administration has. But I still don't really fully understand why the Biden slash Kamala administration struggled so much with this issue. I really don't
The
understand it.
unfortunate thing that I've just come to realize is reading about when the Israeli prime minister in the 90s, I believe Shimon Peres at the
Yeah,
time, when
yeah,
he went to testify to an American committee of senators, and Joe Biden went on just such a virulently hateful rant against Palestinians that the Israeli delegation had to vocally disagree. Like, I think he might just be racist.
yeah. It's possible. It's possible, but I really think he also showed very poor leadership on this issue,
Oh, of course. Like,
and he just wasn't willing to push any buttons or do anything. And to be honest, I think he showed poor leadership on a lot of fronts, and that's why he didn't they didn't get reelected.
right.
Uh,
And I perfectly understand all the issues they faced in Michigan. Like,
yeah,
and I mean, what really sealed it was when they sent Bill Clinton, of all people, to go tell them that they're not being grateful enough and they don't understand why the land really belongs to Jews. And
yeah,
I'm like, are you stupid?
yeah. But I also genuinely think that Kamala Harris was the wrong choice to run for president after Biden, and my fear is that she's going to try to run again, and that she would get the nomination.
Did you
Uh,
listen to her recent podcast appearance on Jon Stewart's podcast, which is very affectionately, I like how it's called The Weekly Show?
yeah, I watched a couple of the clips. I didn't see the whole thing, but she's just not good at this. Like, this is
No.
just not her space. Like, it's just, and it's fine. Like, you don't have to be good at everything.
No,
Like,
it's like,
I probably wouldn't be good at being president of the United States. It's okay. You know?
I don't know how good I would be as an elected official at any level, to be honest, and to any conservative clipping that for their opposition research binder when I inevitably run for something 10 years from now. Congratulations on uncovering this Easter egg. You win a no prize.
Yeah, but where I'm going with this is that she's just not the right person for this, and they've got to have more talent in the Democratic Party if they're going to
Yeah, the
try
people who
to
win
win.
primaries need to actually be good. Well, but that's actually the problem. She didn't have to face a competitive primary.
No, she didn't. She
Yeah.
did. She just it was handed to her, and she's trying to get it to be
And that's
handed to her.
very rare for Canadians who lack context. America was something I actually praise them on compared to Canadian politics. It's open primaries.
Yeah,
Like AOC won her position as a Democratic nominee for Congress and then won her first term in Congress by unseating the existing Democratic congressman in a primary, which the Liberal Party, the NDP, the Conservatives, none of them would allow that up here. But undoubtedly, it meant a better person in the legislature there on behalf of the Democrats because iron sharpens iron, steel sharpens steel. The best candidate won in a competitive primary, and then they were able to win a competitive general.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I kind of like our system too, but there's good and bad to everything. But
yeah, I know something that complicates it up here is that we don't have like fixed election dates, really. Like they can pass it sometimes into law, but constitutionally, when there's a lack of confidence, there's going to be a snap election. So you have the problem of what happens if like a snap election happens very, very soon after the last election.
yeah.
For example, a federal election, perhaps after already having one earlier this year.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I get it. It's like, I feel like the NDP, some of them may have to abstain or whatever, but like, I do feel like Carney is being too bold. I think that governing like you have a majority when you don't, it's what pissed off the NDP enough the last time to be finally willing to break the supply and confidence agreement. And liberals don't do well when they get too arrogant.
I don't disagree with that, but I personally, I like Carney. A lot of people don't like Carney. I know even people in the Liberal Party who are not fans of his, so there's starting to be some rumblings there. But I'm a really big fan of Carney, and I never thought I would be. I thought that I thought that I wouldn't like him, but I really, really do like him. On policy, I like him. On his style, I like him. On his communication, in terms of how he goes about things, his strategy, I really like. So that's one. But going back to the election and being too bold or whatever. So I agree with you, except that he does kind of have a majority, because the NDP have no chance in hell in going into an election. Like, it's just not possible.
Well, not if they're trying to run a full slate, but it has been put forward to me that if the goal of the NDP, if they just emergency nominated most of their candidates from the last time, they could probably hold what they already have and maybe pick up a few more seats to get above where they are now. I don't actually know the NDP has as much to lose in an election here, and I think the Bloc, they want to go before there's potentially a Parti Québécois government.
The NDP don't even have a leader right now.
That's true. But if the goal is to preserve caucus and pick up a couple seats in an emergency situation, it's not impossible.
It's not impossible, but I don't think they would be able to preserve caucus. I think if the NDP was to trigger an election right now, they will lose seats. They will be in a much worse situation than they are now, and it would be a complete disaster for them. I think they would be better served by waiting until they actually have a leader in place. And like the interim leader they have isn't exactly a popular figure.
Yeah, I wouldn't say Don Davies is the face of charisma.
No, but, so like we're talking about.
Yeah, I mark the NDP down as like a likely abstain, and I think the Bloc would probably be a more likely dance partner. But I do think the Liberals gotta be very careful about how they interact with other parties going forward, because the shoe will always be on another foot. And so I'm getting John Turner vibes here a little, actually.
I think the reason why he is going in the direction of being super bold is because he doesn't want to negotiate stuff, right, with parties that he knows aren't really going to trigger an election, right? Because the whole thing about, we're going to trigger an election is about negotiations.
But so isn't that just teaching them that they need to be willing to trigger in an election to get anything? And wouldn't that just create more instability long term?
That's assuming they win an election. The NDP is nowhere near winning an election. Triggering an election for them means nothing. Like they gain nothing by triggering an election. They'll just upset people, most likely. You really think that there's any
I
scenario
think
where
it depends on who would be blamed. Would the opposition parties be able to collectively put forward the case that the Liberals weren't willing to be collaborative and the election is their fault for not accepting that they don't have a majority? I think that might happen if it's not just the NDP making that case, but the Tories, the Greens, and the Bloc as well.
do you think that there is any scenario where the NDP can win an election if an election was triggered?
No, but
Then they're not going to trigger an
I think
election.
they could go from 7 to like 10 or 12.
That's not they're gonna be their ultimate goal. They're
No,
not going to trigger an election.
but it wouldn't
Carney,
hurt.
Carney knows there's not going to be an election, and that's why he's being a little bit bold, because he doesn't want to give in to anything. Because I think the reason why is he feels that he needs to do certain things to help Canada's economy recalibrate, and he can't give in on those things, because otherwise he has to deal with it 4 years from now.
Right, but
So,
and yet the majority of the democratically elected legislature seem to disagree with him on that.
sure, I get that, but none of those parties have been able to form government.
Well,
and none of them would, and the polls do not indicate that any of those parties would be able to form government if an election was triggered.
well,
So
that raises a very interesting hypothetical.
Yeah.
If Carney says that he doesn't have confidence of the House, the Governor General doesn't have to immediately grant an election. She could give the Conservatives the opportunity to try and grant confidence, and it wouldn't be impossible to see a Conservative Bloc Québécois unholy alliance.
Yeah, but these are just hypothetical scenarios that are not really grounded in anything that's about to happen.
True,
There's
but
not,
if the Conservatives
I would
demand
bet-
the opportunity,
bet-
then they get to do it until they fail a vote.
I would bet that there will not be an election, and the government, the confidence vote will pass. I will bet. I will bet on that. It's
Valid.
just not possible. It's
Valid.
just-
I don't know if it's
you know.
likely right now either, to be honest. I think
Yeah.
the NDP are likely going to abstain, which will allow them to say they're not supporting it, but also that they're not voting against it. But you know, if it does happen, you and I will both have great ratings for the next month or two.
Yeah. The funny thing about it is the opposition parties that would have to trigger this election would gain nothing from it. They would get nothing from it. There's only two other parties that would potentially gain or lose from triggering from an election being triggered. Maybe Carney loses and Pierre becomes prime minister, or maybe Carney gets a majority government because Canadians are sick of having an election every 6 months.
It
right?
could go either way, but
Yeah.
it does have shades of Turner and Mulroney.
Potentially, but I just don't see it coming. And you got to keep in mind that Pierre's no Mulroney. And he's very personally unpopular.
No, for one, I liked Brian Mulroney. I mean, I still like him. He's not with us anymore, but I like the guy. No, it's like I always tell people I'm a liberal, but he's one of my favorite prime ministers just because, like, he was the last conservative who was like, oh, we need to fund something. We're going to have to create a revenue generation tool. Like he would actually create a tax rather than just blindly slash at things. Like, he was more responsible. Free trade was a good idea, and it isn't our fault that the Americans have abandoned it right now, but it'll still help us with Mexico and a bunch of other countries that we built on that with. So, no, there is an era of conservatives that I do miss, actually. And I say that as a left-wing socialist.
Yeah, honestly, like I was not a fan of Harper. I'm still not a fan of Harper, but with this crew of conservatives, I'm starting to miss the Harper era.
I mean, like, I look at Harper, like, meeting with, like, Narendra Modi, and I'm like, let's not miss him too much.
Not too much. But these guys are just...
I think he's just moved on to a global scale of evil.
Yeah. It's just this brand of conservatives are a little bit way too far to the right for my liking and most Canadians.
It really does speak to first past the post that they're as competitive as they are. Because
Yeah,
I think with a different like voting system, I don't know this conservative coalition could hold itself together.
yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I really agree with that.
Like especially because I feel like Carney. Part of why I don't like him, I guess, is because I feel like he's moved from the liberal niche essentially to the PC progressive conservative niche because the Tories are essentially just the Reform Party now.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree with that. Although I would say, honestly, I find him that he's pretty much like he's a centrist. He's right in the center, and I think that's hard for a lot of liberals to get comfortable with right now
True.
because they're a little bit.
Especially because so few people in the Liberal Party don't actually they don't like fit right in a center. It's usually they're on one or the other,
Yeah,
and they back relative people, and they'll begrudgingly support the other if they're the nominee or the elected person. But
yeah,
like there's a lot of like backroom like court royal court shenanigans. Like
yeah, I agree with that.
yeah, but one other thing I did want to talk about in our front half is you're a former school board trustee for the Peel District School Board in Peel Region in a 905. And recently, the Ford government has made it clear they're not really going to have school boards anymore. I guess unless they're Catholic, then they'll kind of have school boards, and also the French board. But the secular Anglophones will not have school boards. Is my read on it. What's your take on that? Do you think that parents should be allowed to elect representatives to overlook the education of their children?
So I am a really, really I have such great interest in this topic. A lot of people don't really know why I talk about this too much, and they're like, "Oh, you're a school board trustee. Why would you, say that we shouldn't have elected school board trustees?" So sorry, I just hit my elbow. Um,
No worries.
so my perspective is this: I spent 8 years at a school board where we eventually had to beg the government to send in a supervisor because of how dysfunctional it
I
was.
remember that, and I know we did talk about it on your last time on the show.
Yeah. So we, my experience was, coming into a school board at a very young age and looking around and thinking like something's a little bit off here. So my story is really long, and I'm sure listeners would be able to find a lot of that information online. But I think the biggest my biggest concern is um the position just really isn't drawing the right people. There's no accountability on that level because there's not sufficient media attention, and people don't really know who their school board trustee is, and
The
voters
media
just
attention is a very good point because if they barely have enough resources to cover city council, they're not going to
yeah,
cover like the other auxiliary municipal councils as well.
yeah, absolutely, they're not. And also, the reality is, um you know voters don't really know who they're voting for. Like the voter turnout is so low at the municipal level. It's even lower for school board trustees, and people get elected based on name recognition, time and time again, regardless of what they've done in the past. And even if when they do get bad media attention, they still seem to get reelected because people either forget or just not paying enough attention.
Or
So
their headline in the news, even if it's bad media attention, all that people remember is just their name is in the news.
yeah, absolutely. So my perspective is that we still need to have school boards, right? The organizations need to exist. But what we need to do is to have appointed trustees, much like they do with the police boards and hospital boards, and just take the electability constituency work out of it, because trustees can't really do very much on that front anyway. So it's a bit of a facade. And I wrote an article in the Toronto Star talking about that, talking about how Trustees are very limited in terms of their scope to be able to help parents, to advocate for parents. They don't actually, they're not really able to do that
They're
because they're
also
not.
paid absolute dog shit.
Yeah, and they're also, but not able to do that because there are actually specific regulations in the Education Act that say that they're not allowed to get involved in operational matters of a school board, which means any day-to-day
Which
stuff.
defeats their whole supposed purpose as like
Exactly.
an ombudsman, in effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it, right? So you're saying that this is their role, but actually then you have a law that says you're not allowed to do that role.
And that's funny because casework for most elected officials, federal, municipal, or provincial, is people coming and saying, "Hey, I'm having this issue with government bureaucracy," and them help moving it along. Not
Yeah,
necessarily approval, but getting them to a resolution, which is
yeah,
the job.
absolutely.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like it's not the job of your elected official to get you exactly what you want, but it is their job to get the government to respond to you, to address your concerns, and if there is a program or something designed for that, to actually get you into it.
Yeah. So so my perspective is that the government is going in the right direction on this issue. I would like to see the details though, because the devil is always in the details, and I'd like to know what that would actually look like. And I think we have to wait and see.
Yeah.
The reason why they are a little bit hesitant to touch the Catholic and French boards is because of constitutional um, issues that might arise. But even that, if they appoint professional people to the boards to basically to make get rid of the elected portion of it, I think you still satisfy the constitutional.
Yeah, like the constitutional requirement is just to have the separate boards. It's not that they have elected representation
Exactly.
on any board. Like otherwise, like they're just removing trustees, and a secular board would be a problem
Yeah.
because the secular board is constitutionally required as well. Like
Yeah.
it isn't only Catholic schools that are required, or we would be living in an even worse place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, imagine, folks, if there were only Catholic schools publicly funded and no secular education.
No, my concern with getting rid of the boards entirely is that a lot of things are going to get lost.
Yeah, you
And
need like a regional breakdown of
you
things.
need something.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
you can't just have Joe Schmo in the Ministry of Education just waving their magic wand and saying approved, denied.
yeah, exactly. You need to have something, right? Because yeah, you can't just have again Joe Schmo in the Ministry of Education in charge of 500 schools
And then you can
and
argue
all
that
their needs.
your member of provincial parliament, your MPP, can deal with that regional board.
I'm sorry.
You can make the argument that if you're a person living in that area, that if you have an issue, you can then go to your member of provincial parliament and they will deal with the regional authority or board.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's the same thing with hospitals, right? Like people have issues in hospitals.
But you don't need a
People
hospital board.
but you don't elect hospital boards to go read through charts of people and come up with
Oh,
magical
although
solution. You don't.
while me might find this a bit funny in Ontario, in Vancouver, they do have a park board and they're actually having a debate now over whether or not they should keep that or not. And there are a lot of people I know in Vancouver who appreciate the park board a great deal because it's helped preserve the seawall and fight for that.
Yeah, and that's a little bit of a different thing because they're the type of service that they provide. We have library boards in Mississauga. I think across the country we have library
Hmm.
boards. So, but they are not elected; they are appointed. Right? We have a lot of boards, but again, we don't include them in the municipal election. So you can have as many boards as you want, but having appointed representatives, much like we do with police boards, much like we do. I mean, when was the last time you heard of a police board being under supervision? When was the last time you heard of a
I can think of a lot of police boards that should have been under supervision.
Well,
I
what was the last
distinctly
time?
remember several cops in Toronto lying to the court about claiming someone committed a murder that they did not, and then the judge castigulating them for it.
Well, okay, I'll take that back. When was the last time you heard of a hospital board being under supervision?
That's a better point, but I also know some hospitals that are treating patients horribly.
Well, yeah, but that's a different story. That has to
I
do
know, I know.
with
I have a friend of mine.
management.
She was at St. Michael's, and they wouldn't let her take her birth control meds because it was a Catholic hospital.
Oh, okay, that's a different. Those are different issues.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't actually mean to answer your
I'm talking
rhetorical
about governance.
questions.
I'm talking about governance, right?
Valid, yeah, but
When it's
yeah,
governance, we don't see that, and why? It's because you have the right people at the table who, and there are mechanisms to remove them individually if there's a problem
right.
with an elected
But
board.
ultimately, those appointed people would be appointed by someone elected in a different. Ultimately, whether it's a municipal election or provincial election, is it fair to say the blame lies with the voters and who they choose to elect?
No, I don't say. I would never say that. I'll tell you why.
We can't blame voters for their own choices?
No, because if you spend enough time working on campaigns, you would know that there's so much that goes into it, and voters really, they just do the best they can in terms of just being able to understand all of the information that's coming their way, and then making the best decision they can at the time.
That's
I
valid.
never blame voters.
Oh yeah, that's a very healthy way to approach
Yeah.
elections, and that's the approach I had when I used to work on elections. But thankfully, now that I'm a commentator, I don't have to give voters credit anymore, and now I blame voters more now than I did when I was actually trying to get their vote. I think I left the business half because I lost patience with the people in our lives.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I give them a lot of credit because they're busy.
I used to give them credit.
Yeah.
I used to give them a lot of credit. There's still some credit, but folks, if you're listening, please earn some more credit from me. I'll give you a loan, but you gotta show proof of income.
That's funny.
Folks, don't go anywhere. We will be back soon with our guest Nokha Dakroub and our 3 headline topics of a week. See you in a sec. Today's episode of It's Getting Pretty Late with Jake Landau is brought to you by me. Folks, all of my work is available for free with no paywall at jakelandau.ca. But in order to keep writing and recording, I need money, because money is what makes this show go round. So, if you enjoy my content or find it informative, please consider a paid subscription at jakelandau.ca/subscribe. And please leave a 5-star rating on the show in your favorite podcast app, be it Apple, Spotify, or a secret third thing. Thank you, and enjoy the show. And we are back from the break with our guest Nokha Dakroub and our 3 headline topics of the week. Our first headline topic from CBC News, from the Toronto Bureau, from Arthi Thayapran, is Ford urges U.S. ambassador to bury the hatchet, apologize after profane tirade. The U.S. ambassador delivered an expletive-laced rant at the Ontario Trade Representative on Monday, according to witnesses. The United States ambassador is Pete Hoekstra, which I don't believe any of us like him, and the Ontario Trade Representative is David Patterson. It was at a Canadian American Business Council event in Ottawa this Monday, and because, for folks unaware, Doug Ford ran an ad featuring authentic quotes and recordings from Ronald Reagan with his authentic view that tariffs are bad and hurt America and America's neighbors. So Doug Ford played this during the first couple games of the World Series, and it made Donald Trump really, 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 really mad. And now the U.S. ambassador started telling the trade representative from Ontario to F off and whatever at the event. And now the Doug Ford has said that his remarks, the ambassador from America, were absolutely unacceptable and unbecoming of an ambassador. Uh, and then Ford doubled down that the ad was still the right thing to do, and I actually agree with him on that, as you folks can listen to in last week's discussion. And he urged Hoekstra to apologize to Patterson to get negotiations back on track. The exact quote: "Pete, you gotta call Dave up and apologize. It's simple. I get heated sometimes, but just call the guy up and bury the hatchet." Now, Nokha, I'm not sure how you feel about this, but I liked the ad because I like making Donald Trump angry, and I think these negotiations have been fruitless. And I think it's extremely funny that not only is Doug Ford not backing down, but he's mocking the ambassador and the media and treating him like a child who's misbehaved and needs to be scolded. But how do you feel about it?
I agree with you.
Well, hi.
I think it's really unfortunate that the ambassador behaved in such a way. It's just not appropriate.
No.
Behavior is behavior, and this is certainly bad behavior. And he should apologize for it. Doesn't matter if his temper was too hot, or it doesn't matter that he didn't like the ad. There's ways to treat people, and that's certainly
yeah, it isn't even about being an ambassador or a diplomat in another country. It's also just about how you have conversations with other people.
Just be a decent human being. Like, just don't behave like that. It's that simple.
But that's very hard, though, for the Trump regime.
Yeah, sure.
But they're locking people in concentration camps. I don't know that the decent human being bar may have been lost a long time ago.
Yeah, that I can understand, but just on the whole idea of the ad and Doug Ford, I too like the ad, and honestly, I don't think there's anything you could do to make Trump happy.
Yeah, that's what I think. It's like that's part of I think why people are losing patience with Mark Carney, is that we keep on like conceding things to the Americans, and not only do we not get anything in return, they'll like increase a tariff anyways. So if no matter what we do, they're going to try and hurt us, then at least we should have the self-respect to stand up for ourselves
and run some ads, right?
Yeah.
I understand. See, and it's a difficult thing because in Carney's shoes, he has to do what he has to do.
I got that like for a first few months, but now I hear like people who voted for Carney and told me I wasn't being patient enough with him, telling me they're now running out of patience and that they need to like see something. And I think that's true. I think people, like especially liberal voters, they do need to see some fruit from the discussion, because they don't like, it's very hard to go from the elbows up rhetoric to I'm laying down on the ground without showing something in return.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like, he needs to move things forward. But I think overall, even if you had a trade deal tomorrow, Trump can change his mind the next day.
Well, that's exactly what I think. It's like, why do we care about making another deal with him? He's already violating the current deal. Like, he doesn't respect any deals. Like,
he doesn't respect it. You piss him off the next day and the deal's gone.
Like,
I mean, he might get pissed off because he doesn't like the weather. We don't know. He'd be like, "Oh, some clouds are coming from Canada."
Now, we're in a genuine position where I think we have a more fair and equitable trading relationship with China.
So this is the other thing. I think this is another thing that the Trudeau, another mistake that the Trudeau government made. They really made us heavily dependent on the US, and they isolated us from the rest of the world. It's a big world.
Yeah, we've had like 10 years under Trudeau that we could have been like economically diversifying. Like, we should not have integrated as heavily with the United States on the premise we could trust them to make the right decision every 4 years until the end of time.
Yeah, basically that's what Trudeau did. And it's unfortunate because and I can understand that we have very strong disagreements with other countries on many different issues. I can understand that, and I can understand that trade is a way to try to move the ball on certain issues here and there, but we are not that country that's able to do that. So I think Trudeau didn't, he maybe overestimated his Canada's power on the world stage, but also he overestimated his ability, or Canada's ability, to solely rely on one trading partner, and didn't invest in trading relationships across the globe. In fact, he worked pretty hard to shut a lot of them down.
And yeah, and like I feel one victory was continuing with the Trans-Pacific Partnership, then the CPTPP after America pulled out, which was good, and there was also Europe as well, but like it wasn't enough, and it wasn't as serious, it wasn't as in high volume, and it we are not in a, and also on the defense portfolio, Trudeau just failed utterly.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
agree with that.
No, it's funny. I wrote a column recently where I was saying that we should still buy our F-35s from America, knowing they could shut them down if we go against them or an American proxy. But we should also buy the other fifth generation market fighter on the market, the J-35 from China, because if we know both of them probably have a kill switch for their respective countries, but they're both opposing powers, at least half the fleet would always work, and in the best case, all of it would work. Like, it isn't actually that crazy of an idea to me because, like, I think we should be treating China and America about the same currently.
Yeah, I that's a good idea in terms of the F-35s. I hope we never need them.
Yeah,
Um,
I think because the person will probably need them against the most is the one selling them to us.
yeah,
Like, that's why I like the J-35s because they're the other fifth generation multi-role fighter. So they do genuinely compete with the F-35 in a similar capability niche, and they could slot into a multi-fleet thing, but that may be a bit off topic from whether or not the ambassador needs to apologize to our trade
yeah.
representative. On another note, I do love how provinces, because we're such a big confederation and a weak confederation, a big federation and a weak federation at that, to the point that I was almost calling us a confederacy. Like, it is that we literally, some provinces have their own trade representatives that act as like pseudo diplomats. Like, I know Quebec was big on this. And it gets very muddy because I know places like Taiwan where they don't get diplomats accepted will have trade offices. Like, so it's just a very funny thing to me that we do in our federalist system.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but not sure what if there's much else to say on this front. But if we're expecting an apology, I I would not wait long because I do think that Mr. Hoekstra, like I think this is what he was sent to do. Be an asshole. I don't think Donald Trump wants him to be amenable to us or personable. I think he wants him to be trolled by proxy.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I
So
think
yeah. Yeah, so we don't need to kowtow to these people. We don't need to bend over. We don't need to get on our knees and ask how we can best be of service to them. Like we need to have self-respect for ourselves as a country. And if we keep letting the conservatives do it, then I think liberals and NDP are going to have a hard awakening.
yeah, I agree with that.
Alrighty, moving on to our second topic of the day, going from federal kinda ish to provincial mostly ish. In Alberta, from Global News, from Jack Farrell and Lisa Johnson, Alberta students walk out of class in support of teachers forced back to work. So, Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta, recently, after a few weeks of the teachers being on strike, after about 89% of them rejecting the province's offer, she has used the notwithstanding clause to violate their charter rights to strike and to collectively bargain. And rather than do what other provinces have done when doing back to work legislation and require arbitration, she is simply forcing them to accept the contract offer that they all largely rejected. Now, I am going to be honest, I think the teachers' union response was a bit weak in that when Doug Ford did a similar thing with the notwithstanding clause to support workers in schools, they just kept striking immediately without returning. In Alberta, I know that there's some musings from larger labor organizations about a general strike, but they are not moving nearly quickly enough on that. However, it appears that filling the gap and doing the right thing when adults aren't doing it enough is, as always, the students, the youth. So thousands of students rallied in Edmonton at the Alberta Legislature and the Alberta Teachers Association building this Thursday to protest this invocation of the notwithstanding clause and the violation of our Constitution's charter rights, our basic freedoms as Canadians. Students said, you can force them back to work, but we're not going to be in the class. Which I like. I participated in some student strikes and coordinated them actually in my time as a kid. So I have a great affinity for when the next generation does it as well. It's like, and I like to see how much better they are at it than I was too, Nokha. Like it's great when the kids are better at these things than we were. It's always inspiring when they're actually more competent at it. But
Yeah.
I'm really not a fan of the notwithstanding clause, as I've written and talked about several times, but I am a bisexual autistic Jew, and if my constitutional rights are up to a simple majority vote, that has not typically gone well for autistic people or queer people or Jews in recent history. If you want any more knowledge on that, please go to the Human Rights Museum in Winnipeg so you can see every horrible thing our country has done. But yeah, so I'm not a fan of the notwithstanding clause. I'm also a big supporter of unions and labor rights. So, I hate this. Like, I really fucking hate this. Like,
Yeah, no, I totally get it. So I'm with you. I'm not a fan of the notwithstanding clause at all. I think it's been overused and inappropriately used in recent history. Um, so my take on this is a little bit. So, as somebody who spent a lot of time in education, I can't really specifically talk about Alberta because I don't really know anything about Alberta's education system.
if
Um,
Ontario teachers are paid good, Albertan teachers, I think, are paid the worst in the country.
yeah, but the cost of living is also very different.
Mm.
So you can't really compare. You can't compare
Yeah, but you also have to live in Alberta.
Yeah, that's a different story. So I won't make any specific comments about like which side because I really don't know anything about their negotiations or even what they're negotiating about. But what I will say is that it is inappropriate for the premier to be using the notwithstanding clause. Um, and it's great that the students are doing this. Um, I don't know if that'll make a significant difference. In my experience, I don't really see a lot of this making a significant difference. Usually helps with having some PR stories, put a little bit of pressure on the
In the
government.
long term, though, like I see these people, like these teenagers are saying they're 15 or 16 years old. Like very shortly, they'll be able to vote, and Danielle Smith is going to have a new electoral group to contend with.
Except they don't vote,
Well,
as we know.
these people may, if they're going out to organize a protest by themselves at the legislature as teenagers, I think they may be voting more than the average person admitted. They also may organize campaigns as they grow up, is the other thing. Like, I know, like, that was a pipeline I went on. Like for
Yeah.
yeah, but it's like and it's also their concerns. Like they're very articulate, and like the global news, like they do cover it like very clearly. I know Corey Peace, he's 15. He talks about just the size of class. He says my classes are far too big, and teachers are underfunded and deserve a lot more. Like he talks about not being able to learn as well in his classroom because of the class sizes. One 16-year-old, she says that she wants the government's MP, MLAs there to spend a week in the public schools and actually see on firsthand the results of their underfund. Like these are kids who are like, we care very much about our education system because we want to actually be in a good learning environment to prepare for our future. I would not underestimate them.
Yeah, I mean, again, I can't read the future, but I don't think this is going to be, the make or break of Danielle Smith's
No,
decisions.
no, absolutely not. Like, I
I
don't
think
think,
a general strike will certainly be very effective,
yeah.
but I don't know if that'll actually happen because it'll impact a lot of people.
Yeah,
And
I feel like, and that's sort of my thing. I feel like what I respect here is that the students are acting much more rapidly and promptly, the way I would expect the actual union affected to.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I agree with that.
yeah, and like, and that's the thing. It's like when a similar thing happened in Ontario, we remember the union was just immediate. They're like, we're not stopping.
Yeah,
Like, it's, I think that's the thing. It's like, I appreciate these students, like, especially a lot of them, they're like, they see how hard their teachers work for them and they want better for their teachers. And that's a very empathetic thing, I think. Like, I respect that a great deal. But it's like, it should not be the student's job to beg for schools that are properly funded. Like, and this is part of my thing when we talk about earlier about the electoral priorities of who votes for trustees. Unfortunately, parents don't actually have much stake in the quality of a school. They just have a stake in a school being somewhere the kid goes from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. But
I
like,
don't think that's fair to
I,
say.
I I don't think it's fair, maybe
As
not
a
entirely
parent, I
fair,
don't,
but is
as a
it
parent,
fair to
I don't
say
think
that
it's
like
fair.
these teenagers are more primarily the constituents?
I think it's fair to say that there's a very small percentage of teenagers who are very, very understanding of the issues and very, very, gung ho on organizing, and the rest of them are really excited about a day out of class.
Hmm.
I think that's fair to say.
All right. I just think it's like I do think like when it comes to who actually makes like the decisions for like kids and school boards, like we have to remember at this age as teenagers, they do actually have to like pick a majority of their own classes on the basis of what they want to do in university or college, which I remember being very stressful. Like, and it was a common occurrence like in my high school that we did feel like we were having to choose our adult path a bit too early. So I wouldn't be shocked at all like that these kids are in fact genuinely interested in what's in our schools, because I know like we would talk a lot about what programs were available at our high school versus what was available at our friends at other high schools. And I do think that more could be done by school boards, whether they have elected trustees or appointed representatives. More could be done for them to actually consult with the students whose education they are providing.
I agree with that. I think more can be done for sure.
Oh, yeah. That's something I really liked in the Toronto District School Board. There's like a well-developed TDSB like student senate where every high school was essentially sending a senator, and then they all picked like the student trustee. Like it was a very well-developed system, and I appreciate that. And overall, like aside from the point here that violating people's charter rights to strike is a dick move. I do appreciate whether or not these kids are representative of their age group as a whole. I am always more than happy to congratulate and support any kids who want to make better things happen in their own community.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Alrighty. Moving on to our final topic of the day, and we are going with our local story from Nokha's own Mississauga and Peel region. And this is a fun one. You'll enjoy this one, Nokha. From the Toronto Star, as written by Rob Ferguson in the Queen's Park Bureau, Bonnie Crombie molds another run for mayor in Mississauga. Crombie was mayor of the city for a decade before quitting in 2023 to enter provincial politics, which she is now about to leave, I guess, to go back into mayoral politics in Mississauga, even though Carolyn Parrish has already taken her old job. Now, Nokha, I worked on Alvin Tejo's campaign, and I think this was probably one of the last few campaigns I worked on before I quit political organizing and went over to commentary and writing and podcasting instead. But this is crazy.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so like good, like we're on the same page of that. But so like Nokha, for our no prize question of the week, do you think that Bonnie Crombie should be mayor of Mississauga a second time?
It's not about whether I think she should be mayor of Mississauga a second time. I have no problems with Bonnie as the mayor of Mississauga. My concern is, how do you leave an office to go run for something else in the middle of the term? I think it was like 1 year into the term.
Yeah, like the 2022 would have been the alt cycle, so like it was a very quick abandonment.
Right.
I think she's been in the term was less time than she's been in the Ontario Liberal leadership role.
I know. So, and then you quit, causing a by-election that cost taxpayers $3.7 million. Then to turn around and say, well, that didn't work out.
Time to go back, even though like someone's already filled the shoes.
Yeah.
Like I know polling says it would be pretty tight between Parrish and Crombie.
I think polling right now is not going to be accurate.
Yeah, but
with all due respect to pollsters, there's a lot of reasons right now. If you poll, first of all, the poll shows
I see it as like polling Chow and Tory right now.
No, it's not like that at all.
Oh no?
Chow and Tory are actually two well-known figures.
Oh, but is Crombie not well-known enough to the people that she was just mayor of, and is Parrish not well-known enough to the people who just elected her?
Mississauga is a city that has a vacuum of media.
Mm.
There's no,
as evidenced by the story being written by the Toronto Star.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have a lot like going on. The average person in Mississauga isn't paying attention to local politics right now. They will during the election, when there's like an election and then I have to vote. And that's when polls start to really matter. When you go and ask somebody right now, do you know who Alvin is? They're not going to know who Alvin is.
No, I don't expect them to know like candidates who didn't win or people who are city councilors. But I would expect them to know like the current mayor and the mayor before them.
They would have an idea of who the mayor is. I honestly,
an idea of who the mayor is.
Yeah.
Like a vision or a mirage.
Yeah. They'll say, is that the blonde one?
Well, that unfortunately isn't narrowing it down here, is it?
I'm not kidding, Jake. I'm not kidding, Jake.
I know. It's like, well, you were telling me earlier not to blame voters, but you're giving me a reason to blame voters.
But here's the thing: we just don't. There's just no way to get that information. Like, people have to want to get that information in order to get it. And if you're online, most of us get our news online. So it depends what algorithm you're in.
So shall we force them to take the information?
No, it's just people just don't pay that much attention to municipal politics in general, right?
Well, maybe we should force them then. We should do like the Clockwork Orange thing and just run each page of the Toronto Star in front of their eyes.
Yeah. So just going back to the poll, I don't think any polling right now is going to be accurate.
Yeah, it's a bit far out.
Yeah, and I think more people right now might know who Bonnie is because they just saw her on TV a lot for the provincial stuff. But I think more people who would know who Carolyn is are way more likely to also vote in the municipal election. So there's a little bit of like how well known somebody is, and what's the likelihood of that actually translating to the voter base? Because not everybody votes in municipal elections.
Right. I know that there was a phrase you used on social media the other day in regard to this story or rumor, political tourism. Yeah.
I think I coined that term.
Yeah. I know. But I get what you mean. It's like shopping around for the best opportunity you can find rather than just taking an elected role and then serving as best as you can.
Yeah, basically, that's exactly what it means.
Uh, and it's right because like she's not denying it. Like in response to a comment or question from the star, she commented, "All options are on the table as I reflect on my next path and where I can have the most impact." I'm
Yeah,
like, why? At this point, I would think she would just want to be in the private sector where she can make money.
or just retire and enjoy life.
Yeah,
Like
that
she,
too. Like does she not have family she wants to spend time with? Like the
I don't know why people in politics just don't know how to enjoy life.
I know
And this
it. Well,
reason,
it's my local city councilor. Like she had a terminal cancer, and she literally was in community consultations arguing over whether or not to allow apartment buildings until the day she died.
wow.
And like she had kids, like, and she cared about them, and they cared about her. But I'm like, that is not where I would be in like the last week of my life.
Yeah, that's not where there
Yeah,
is.
a bit of a different. I hopefully, no one in our current discussion here is on their way out.
Yeah, there's also a reality to let the next generation get a turn. You don't
Exactly.
you don't have to be, and with all due respect to Hazel, may she rest in peace. You don't have to be the next 100-year-old mayor of Mississauga.
You don't need like to serve
You
30
really don't.
years.
Yeah,
I in the movie Prometheus by Ridley Scott, which was a kind of sort of alien prequel, something I really liked thematically was with the like Charlize Theron's character. Like her dad, who's 100 years old, has come along on this spaceship journey because he's chasing like some pseudoscience that will extend his life immortally, and she's like in her 30s, and she's just asking at what point can you just move on and let the next generation take over and inherit everything you've built and let the world keep turning. Like and that was very thematically poignant for like a sci-fi horror movie.
yeah,
Yeah, so I get what you mean completely. Like at a certain point, and this is also like, no, it's not ageism. It is just saying that there are certain things you will not advocate for as fiercely if they do not personally affect you. It is not good. That's the way it works a lot of the time, but unfortunately, it is.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. How do you think Crombie would do if she ran a second time in Mississauga? Do you think that would go successfully for her?
Um, the odds are against her, I would say, for many different reasons, but I think Carolyn would have to run a very strong campaign.
Yeah, I imagine it would be a fiercely fought one because I know Crombie endorsed Alvin last time, so I know a lot of the Tejo people would probably go over back to her. Like, but
Actually,
I,
she didn't endorse him for the mayoral race. No,
oh, she didn't endorse him for the mayoral.
no.
Okay, that I may have been brain farting there because
She endorsed
I
him
don't
for his council race.
I don't know why I thought that they were together during the mayoral at some point. Like I was confused, but like I assume a lot of people from that camp could go over. I would not run in that environment if I were Alvin. It sucks, but I would just stay on the city councilor path,
I
and then
would.
yeah, and then you would run.
If I were Alvin,
Yeah.
I would not want Bonnie to come back and be the mayor of Mississauga for the next 30 years.
I don't think she would. I think I would agree with you that Parrish would be more likely to win. If I were Alvin, I would take another 4 years as a city councilor and then run in the following election.
It, I don't know. I
Yeah,
think
I know. At a certain point, think you're right that you can overthink these things too much. Yeah. In any case, I won't be helping on this one because that life of organizing is thankfully far beyond me. I like Alvin a lot, and I did enjoy working on his campaign, but nonetheless, I'm not working on an election ever again in my life.
okay, that's
I
good to know.
I like the journalistic field instead. It suits me much better.
Yeah, I can see that. That's good.
Well, Nokha, thank you so much for joining the program today. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. But before we go, one quick lightning round question. For Game 7, Jays or Dodgers?
Jays for sure.
Well, that's the home team pick, so I hope we're sincere in that because I really do need them to win. I'm wearing my jersey right now, folks. You can't see it, but I got my jersey, I got my Expos hat, I got the popcorn machine red. I am ready for some baseball evening fun. So
That's
go enjoy the show, and Nokha, thank you again for coming on our show today.
Thank you so much, Jake. I hope you have a wonderful evening and go Jays.
Thank you. Nokha Dakroub, everybody. And that'll do it for this week's episode. I am about to go watch the Blue Jays in about an hour and a half from the time I am taping this little bit. We'll see you next week with another returning guest from a bit of a different field than this one. So yeah, let's go Blue Jays, and please win. For the love of God, please, I need them to win. Thank you, folks. Have a good weekend. This is the end of the show. Bye.